Bays. Tan Talk. Entertaining and informative radio for the Sunshine State.
Welcome to Picture This, Tampa Bay's talk show devoted to photography in all its aspects, hosted by Jeff Donald and myself, Lou Donald. We got a busy night tonight, Jeff. Let's get started.
Sure, why not? How are you this evening, Lou?
I'm great.
Tony, you're our guest this evening. How are you?
I am very well, thank you.
You're fresh off Clearwater Beach. You had a shootout there.
Yes, I did.
Supposedly. Not supposedly, you did, but that's exciting.
I'm a little damp, and I got plenty of sand and.
Oh, you brought
water.
us souvenirs. You brought us some genuine Clearwater sugar sand, right? Right? Isn't that what they call that?
They'll put a light in my shoes.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. At least you have shoes on.
There you go.
So anyway, you're right. We should get started, Lou. And you've got our website of the week, or your website of the week.
Yep.
What absolutely obscure photographer have you found this week who no one's ever been to his website, so let's drive traffic there.
There you go.
Yeah.
This is PhilipLeeHarvey.com. He's a travel and commercial photographer.
Okay.
Born in Canterbury, England in 1969. And when you go to Philip, PhilipLeeHarvey.com,
Yep.
and you pull up his homepage, at the bottom, you will see his different galleries.
Cool.
And a lot of travel photography, street photography with the travel photography, some landscape, even some little bit of nature photography. And then he's also got some commercial photography that he has shot around the world. Mm-hmm. And I think you'll see some inspiring images.
Cool. Yeah, I just pulled up his website. Looks like some cool stuff. And just so the listeners know that those will be featured on our Facebook page tomorrow. We'll put the links up so you can check out, if you didn't copy that all down, catch us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/picturethisradioshow. And while I'm doing all the rundown, let's give folks some phone numbers they can call us at if you've got a question for Lou or I or Tony. Call us in Pinellas, 727-441-3000, or toll free 866-826-1340. Or you can email your questions to picturethis.questions@gmail.com, and we'll be getting to those in a little bit. And somebody actually earlier today emailed us a question, so we'll get to that at some point in the show. So get your emails and phone calls in. My little segment here, before we get to Tony, is concerning this week in photography history, and that's kind of my thing. So two things this week are very notable. One is, and we actually I featured it as his birth on our second or third show back in February. But this is the anniversary. This is the 29th anniversary of the passing of Ansel Adams, who was certainly a major influence in my life getting into photography when I lived out west and was shooting with a view camera and many things. I thought, wow, this is it. I'll be the next Ansel Adams. And as I say, that's why I do radio today. And you're not running down to the gallery to buy my prints for $800,000 or whatever. But Ansel Adams passed away on April 22nd, 1984, and quite a visionary. Definitely shaped the future of much of photography in the United States. And he and Edward Weston and a fellow by the name of Willard Van Dyke started the F-64 group, which was back then what they called straight photography. And many people misunderstand straight photography, thinking that it means what today is kind of known as straight out of camera, SOOC. But that's certainly very far from what Ansel Adams did. These guys did heavy manipulation in the darkroom with their negatives and their prints and things like that. But the movement prior to that was known as the pictorialists. And pictorialists thought that photography's role in art was to make photographs look like paintings or somehow more artistic. And Ansel Adams' group, F-64, was dedicated to photography being more realism, let's say. Something
That
like
was the word, realism.
Yeah.
So he shot a lot of images from the roof of his car?
Well, that's
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
He
That is
actually had a shooting platform modified for that station wagon. That's a favorite picture of mine. I've used it on the Florida Center Creative Photography website, and I had it on Facebook this week. But yeah, he actually had that shooting platform made for that station wagon of his, and he did that for a number of decades so that he could get to the proper vantage point.
Because I saw that image and I'm thinking, oh, that's just great. That's great.
He staged that for Facebook. He had to have. Yeah. So, but if you search Ansel Adams on Wikipedia, you'll see a nice bio of him from his early days in San Francisco, right before the earthquake and fire and everything. And that's how he broke his nose. He was a small child, I think 3 or 4, and the earthquake happened, and they lived a couple miles from downtown. And but an aftershock, he was walking around their backyard or something, and an aftershock knocked him down, and he went face first into like a stone wall in their garden, and it busted his nose. And his parents never, paid to have it set properly, and all through life he had that little bent nose there.
What kind of camera did he use? What kind of camera?
Well, generically it's known as a view camera, and but the size film was from basically 4-inch by 5-inch on up to. He did a lot of his work on 8 by 10, and the local practitioner who some of you may know of or follow on Facebook and other social media, Clyde Butcher, still kind of carries on that tradition. One of the few. That are using these large format cameras, view cameras, to do the principal amount of their work and all. So.
And a big thing about Ansel Adams is he was a big proponent of what he called the zone system.
Right.
Which was a way of how he dealt with light to make the perfect negative for printing.
Yep. And that was his whole thing, was capturing this range of light onto a negative, so that the negative could then be processed a certain way, and then once the negative was processed that way, it could then be printed a certain way and create these prints that had this big dynamic range, or a large scale from black to white and things like that. Yeah, real cool. The other person I will mention just briefly, Lou and I were talking at dinner tonight about this, was also someone that we featured on This Week in Photography back in February, I believe, was Diane Arbus, who was a photographer that towards the end of her life concentrated on kind of what I called the fringe of society. She's noted for taking pictures of people in circuses and these twins and odd assortment of stuff.
Freak shows.
Yeah, freak show. That's I was trying to avoid that, but that would be accurate, probably. Her husband passed away this week, and many of you probably don't go, well, what's the big deal about Diane Arbus's husband? Well, he's best known for playing the psychiatrist on the TV show MASH. He played Dr. Sidney Friedman, the psychiatrist, and his name's Alan Arbus, and he passed away this week at age 95.
Wow.
And was the husband of, so a little connect all the dots kind of thing. But if you were a fan of MASH back in the 70s, he played Dr. Sidney Friedman. So that was This Week in Photography. Ansel Adams. Oh, and the other thing I did want to mention, because it is really unique, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. As far as I know, he's the only photographer that's ever been awarded that. And that's quite a distinction. That's the highest civilian honor that an American citizen can earn. And Ansel Adams got it, primarily for his environmentalism. And this week being Earth Day and all that stuff, this past week, just thought it appropriate we talk about Ansel. So enough of that. Let's get to Tony. Let's see what's going on in Tony Murdo's life. Lou, you've got some questions I know for Tony.
Yep. Tony, I always like to ask people, what got them started in photography?
Well, I got to be honest. I grew up in a house where my dad always had a camera in his hand.
No kidding.
It was a case where either he was shooting stills or he was shooting Super 8s. And back then it was silent. Thank goodness in my family it was silent.
So we don't have any recorded memories of little Tony running around, huh?
But,
Daggone it.
it's actually recently I was at my mom's house.
Yeah.
And she gave me. I have reels of all these old, Super 8s.
Sure.
And I just can't wait to get them transferred to tape or to DVD or
yeah,
whatever.
DVD these days.
But what I admire most out of my dad was he was in the moment. He never stopped. I was a little kid. I was kind of acting up. I would get out of hand. I would, and my mom would be chasing me all over the place and trying to keep a lid on it, so to speak. And my dad just kept shooting. I mean, we'd be in these great locations, and there's this little boy running. We're in Washington D.C. is a classic example. Here's this little child running through, this iconic moment, and here's this lady trying to keep this child in tow, and my dad didn't stop. I got movies of me just coming through the scene and exit stage left, and I'm going to the right, and it's and shooting stills and just going through boxes of images and I kind of picked it up as I was a teenager, and it's been great. I love it.
Cool.
How did you get started as a wedding and portrait photographer?
I had a buddy of mine actually that got married, and he knew I was pretty deep in photography, and he came to me and said, "Hey, would you like to shoot our wedding?" I said, "Okay, I don't know. All right, we'll give it a shot."
Yeah.
So
I've never done that before.
Yeah.
Let's try it.
But he gave me a lot of leverage. He said, just do your best, and and I just love it. I love weddings. I love you have the main story, bride and groom, the families, but I also love the moments. I love the subplots. The children, the relatives, the little, the non-scripted moments.
Yep.
And if you can capture those, a lot of times my best images are sometimes taken where I follow the action. It's not really posed. I'll follow the bride and groom as they walk off, and they'll do something, something really magical. And I just love those moments. And it's a lot of work, but I just love that.
Cool. So you do weddings and portraits, and I've seen some of your wedding stuff, and while you do all the formal shots, like you say, you're kind of an in the moment kind of guy, which I think today is kind of regarded as these photojournalistic weddings,
right?
And I would say you're a practitioner of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, the wedding would be probably half scripted, half unscripted.
Yeah.
And sometimes with the unscripted moments, we're given a little more leverage, where we can do things a little more artistic.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun.
And so and I know we have a lot of members in the center, but also probably listeners who are professionals and do weddings and things. How do you deal with what I call the Uncle Joes that show up with their cameras and all this kind of thing? Do you have any special secrets for dealing with the relatives that have a digital camera?
A lot of times what I do is when I sit down with the bride and groom and we talk and we go over ideas, I'll say, if things come up where things get a little bit out of hand, is there someone I can go to, kind of like a designated family member, that I can go to and say, okay, Uncle Bob is a little crazy. Let's kind of, keep him in line. Also when we're doing especially doing formal shots.
Yeah.
I can kind of see, I'll have my shot set up, and I can kind of see and I can watch the eye lines of people I'm photographing, and I got eye lines going in 50 different places.
Right.
I'll just stop it. I'll say, guys, stop. And I'll turn around and say, listen, give me 3 minutes, 4 minutes, let me get these shots, and then you can come in and do your thing.
Yeah.
And because I got eye lines going in 9 different directions.
Yeah. Which never works.
No, it doesn't. So, and it's just, you just got to be upfront, just like, well, I want to get this shot. If you guys want me to get this shot, this is what we need to do. Very
good.
Yeah.
Very good.
What do you like about shooting portraits?
I love, to me, what pulls an image together is the eyes, the face. I love shooting on location. I mean, to me, it's a great challenge. You got everything could be going crazy, and it's to me, it's much more of a challenge to shoot on location. But I love portraits where you're kind of working one-on-one. You have time. You have time to work out the little nuances of posing and eye lines and expressions. So most of my portrait sessions are 2-3 hours.
Yep, takes time to get the relationship with someone.
Right, and and I I get to work with a lot of really, really talented people. And it's just the gas. It really is a lot of fun. You know, I'll come home and I can't, you know, I'll be sore for 3 days. Like, oh, I can't get up. You know, my back is stiff, whatever. But I just love doing it. You know, it's just the gas. It's a blast to do it.
Well, you know, and that shows in the quality of your work. Now, your website is
mertophotography.com.
Okay, and that's MERTO photography.com.
.com.
All right. Yeah. And you know, I've looked at your pictures on and off over years. You've been a member of the group since just about the beginning.
As a matter of fact, Jeff looked at it. We went out a couple weeks ago, about 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And Jeff made me cry, and I, you know, got over it and dried my eyes and picked myself up, and we were good.
That was a real friendly critique.
It was.
You know, you didn't cry for more than 5-10 minutes.
No,
so,
Tony, you need to go out and sell your gear. What is this?
Yeah. You're a photographer. But you've had your work critiqued by other people too. You've gone to Photoshop World.
Yes.
And they do critiques.
Yes, they do.
What was that like? Who critiqued your work at Photoshop World?
As a matter of fact, it was Katrina Eisman.
Oh, yeah.
And she was extremely nice, and she was extremely sweet. And she kind of let me have it on a few images.
Yeah.
But it was, you know, you got to go into that with an open mind, you know.
Yep. If you're going to learn, you know, you can't have that mindset that I'm the greatest photographer out there and nobody can teach me anything, because you're right, they can't. You've got a closed mind. You've got to go in, like you said, with an open mind and accept their honest criticism.
I kind of like critiques. You know, they're good where they can help you with your weaker images.
Right.
But if there's an image that I really believe in, I'll kind of push back and say, no, I like this because of this, this, and this. You know, so it's something, you know, it kind of works both ways.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I've had some of my weaker work kind of ripped to shreds, which is fine. You know, a lot of my buddies that I come in contact with, I'll say, hey, here's my portfolio. I got 20, 25 images in there. Go through the 10 or go through the weakest ones. Pull out 2.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they'll pull them out, and it's like, oh, no, don't pull that one out. So, But I have to, you know.
That's my picture of my grandmother. You can't take that out of my portfolio.
So, but it helps you grow. It helps you, helps you as a photographer.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, it's really cool.
You know, and you brought something up about posing, and that's really kind of a skill in itself. How do you keep fresh at it?
It's really a process where, you know, I'm learning as I go. And I don't think I'll stop learning when I put the camera down. I don't think you ever stop learning. You know, it's a constant where you're redefining the art, you're redefining, because not all poses work with all individuals.
Right.
You know, shorter models, taller people, you know, so you constantly have to fine-tune it, you know, depending on who you shoot with.
Yeah. Different personalities, too. Some things work, some things don't.
Right.
And, you know, there's a whole lot of quotes, you know, these famous photographers. And a lot of them are, you know, there's 2 people in every picture, the photographer and the subject and all these kind of things. But it always points to the collaboration. You know, a successful portrait, you know, it's got some of the photographer in it and it's got some of the subject in it as well.
Right. And it's also a case where I'll be working with someone and I can tell that they really are putting everything into it. They want to walk away with a really, really pretty image. And I can tell that. And, you know, it helps that much more.
Oh, sure.
So it's you know, like Jeff said, it's a collaboration, and you got to work. You got to do what works. You got to. Sometimes I'll be working a particular scene, and nothing I do is working. But you have to go into it. You have to, you know, fine tune it and find the image.
Yep.
Because if you're doing something, you have an image in there. You got to keep pushing it.
Absolutely.
And well, I mentioned this before we went on the air about some of your favorite places. Now, I don't want your secret, hidden, most special places you take all those brides and such. But what are some of your favorite places that people would know that you like to shoot at around the greater Tampa Bay area?
You have an amazing selection of parks.
Yeah.
You know, down here, you know, our park system is probably the best. If not in the state, is probably in the country.
Yeah. Pinellas County parks are wonderful.
I always tried to, especially with bride and grooms, all right, they have their cocktail hour. How much time can they afford to give me?
Sure.
So we can shoot some formals,
Right.
And take our time doing it. So, we can go sometimes if we're limited, depending on where they're having the wedding. We can try to find something right there on location, right where the wedding's taking place. What's most important is time. If they can give me an hour and a half to shoot something right after between the ceremony and when the reception starts, we could make some pretty images. That's extremely important. And I think you could, as photographers, we kind of make something out of nothing. That's what we do.
Sure.
And I think sometimes I don't need a location. Sometimes I'll just need a few extra minutes to find something pretty in almost any location I'm at.
That's fantastic.
Now you do. You just don't do weddings, or I shouldn't say that. You shouldn't. Let me get this straight. You don't only do weddings. You do like senior portraits and things like that.
I do senior portraits as well.
Oh, I should probably seniors. That's not pictures of old people like you. Seniors are people graduating from high school.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, I'm sure you did at your age. But Tony, you do senior portraits, correct?
High school senior portraits as well. Correct.
Yeah. So that must be some fun too, working with younger people, and they probably help keep some of your stuff fresh too. Showing you like, oh, can you take my picture like Hannah Montana or something? Right,
exactly. And they kind of always have these cool ideas and for you to do. And it's always a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, it's a little what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little cliched.
Yeah.
But they want the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
And they,
The railroad tracks.
So, I'm laying on the railroad tracks and she's in front of me and I'm shooting the image, and I said to her, and it's actually a railroad track that's actually used.
Well, yeah, there's only like one railroad track in Pinellas County. You can't get too
So this one's up near Hudson.
Oh, okay.
So I said to her, all right, you look that way. That's the train coming that way. Watch my back and I'll watch yours. So we got some nice images there, but it's a lot of fun. And they kind of have a different perspective on it.
Sure.
And
you probably do a lot of stuff at the beaches too. You came here from Clearwater Beach, but a lot of the senior pictures that I see from members of the center and just photographers I know, I see a lot of stuff done at the beach, and it's understandable. This is where we live, and it puts you in that moment, in that time.
Right.
But
right. I had actually a girl I worked with. Ironically, I'm shooting her wedding in November. Really sweet kid. She wanted to do a shoot kind of inspired by Lana Del Rey.
Oh wow!
If you're familiar with Lana Del Rey.
Yeah.
So I had to. Okay, who's Lana Del Rey? I don't know. So I had to
look it up.
Cram on that subject really quick, but we got some cool images that were kind of inspired by that person's look.
Yeah.
So they kind of bring a lot of fresh ideas, which I love. It's it only helps. It only helps me, and it helps them. It's what they want to walk away with.
Yeah.
So that's the cool thing.
Their remembrances of that last year in high school.
And ironically, seniors, they're only going to be a senior once. So to them, that's important. We have to respect that as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, knowing that photography is all about light, how important is flash to what you do with portraits and weddings as well?
It actually is extremely important. There are two ways to go with this. We could do natural light. But down here, you definitely need to push a little flash in there, especially to separate your subject, your foreground from the background, especially when it's bright outside. Making sure they're shaded, making sure there's no sockets in the eyes.
Yeah.
Because that, if anything, drives me bananas. That drives me nuts.
Yeah. Bad shadows is not a very professional look.
And that's the thing. All you need to do is just get them out of the harsh light, push a little flash in there, and you walk away with a really, really pretty image. As a matter of fact, for a lot of the wedding shoots, my wife helps me with the off-camera flash.
Yeah.
So she's, as long as she doesn't hit anybody with the umbrella, but, we're okay. We're working through that. She's good.
Yeah.
So.
There was that one incident, but we won't talk about that on the air.
That was the groom's mom. Oops, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry. Okay. Put a little ice on it. It'll be fine.
Yeah. And now you've had some challenging moments shooting. You and I were out on a this was probably a month ago or so. You and I were out on a photo walk on Clearwater Beach, the ones we do every other Friday night.
Right.
And you told me about a very interesting incident where you were just getting started, and had a little accident with your flashes. Why don't you tell our listening audience about what a day in the life of a portrait photographer can be like?
Well, if I can sum it up in one word, one or several words, secure your tripods, please. Weigh down your tripods before you attach the umbrella.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think too many people know this, but I was doing some. As a matter of fact, we just started doing a senior portrait over at the marina down in Clearwater, and I attached my flash, 2 flashes, battery pack, off-camera flash, the trigger, receiver, umbrella, and I didn't weigh it down. So you know where this story's going.
Yeah,
it's going off like Mary Poppins. All right, it's going off into the water. So that's where that went.
Yep.
So somewhere on Clearwater Beach or Clearwater Marina.
Yeah, at the bottom of Clearwater Marina.
I have 2 speed lights. I have a battery pack. I have some pocket wizards and an umbrella.
An umbrella and a stand.
And I'm happy the fish are enjoying it.
Yeah.
You know.
$1,500, $1,700.
So
yeah.
Right now, who knows? They're probably taking pictures down there better than I am. Who knows?
Yeah. We'll be seeing those on National Geographic soon. I didn't know.
But thank you for bringing that up. I tried to forget that, but thanks a lot.
Well, but the real testament to a professional is what happened next. I mean, okay, the stuff falls in the drink, and your reaction, other than that first 5-10 minutes of crying, but
right. Once I stopped crying, you got to move forward.
Yeah.
But the funny thing was I had no flash.
Yeah.
So here I am using my pop-up flash.
Yeah.
But we walked away with a couple of nice images.
You did. You showed me some of those on your on your iPad. You were like, flicking through some of them. Yeah, this one. So I mean, that's the role of a professional, is that you go, you know what? Not the end of the world. You pick up the pieces and you go, come on, we're going to get some nice shots here. Right. We don't worry about that stuff swimming with the fishes. Right. We're here to take pictures, and we're going to get you a couple of good ones.
And never ever let them see you sweat.
Yeah.
Just keep moving forward. Oh yeah, I meant to do that. I meant to lose my entire lighting rig.
Yeah.
And needless to say, I had a second shoot that afternoon. Yeah. And you do your best.
Yeah.
So you work a little more with the natural light. And ironically, the weather on that day was not good.
No.
So they were out to get me. The radio gods, not the radio gods, but the photography gods were out to get me.
Gods of pocket wizards and strobes and everything else.
Yeah. That was...
All right. Well, that's just part of being in business for yourself too, which is, we had Scott Kelby on a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about Photoshop World and things, and that was one of the things we kind of got to was, what differentiates professionals in this kind of thing, and your average Uncle Bob photographer kind of guy, that thing happens, it's like, well, it's all over.
Right.
Whereas the true professional, it's like, oh, we can make this happen because I've got the skill set to know how to do these things and get the pictures that the client needs. And you just make things work.
It's always a matter of having, you have your plan A.
I was just going to say,
if plan A goes out the window, I have a plan C. All right, if plan C goes out the window, or plan B goes out the window, then I need a plan C.
Yeah.
And you just got to keep moving forward.
Yep.
No matter how painful, that's what does separate it.
Yeah.
You can't just put your camera in the bag and say, okay, I'm going home.
We're done.
You got to provide. You got to make these images.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I had a wedding. Actually, there's a couple images on my website where we actually were shooting a wedding in August, right on the beach, and we got hit with a shower, a rainstorm, right as the what I'm looking
the
ceremony.
No, the ceremony as they were. She was
getting ready to do the vows or whatever.
The vows. I was thinking last rites, but that's different.
That's a different
close. Ceremony.
It depends on your perspective whether it's the last rites or not.
So it was supposed to be a 15-minute ceremony, and we didn't actually make it through. And the rain came, and it poured. It poured right 5 minutes into the into the vows.
Yeah.
So the bride, unfortunately, was not happy,
Yeah.
which understandable. And we tried to take some images a little bit later because the place where they had the reception really didn't lend itself to taking images inside. We had to actually go outside. But the weather was it was raining. It wouldn't cooperate whatsoever. So we waited a little bit, and she wasn't very, very happy. But we finally got her out with her and her husband, and we finally got her out, and we got some really cool images of her, and we got a nice, really, really pretty rainbow.
Oh.
You know, to me, that was the saving grace.
Absolutely.
You know,
There you go.
and you know, that's
a wonderful shot.
yeah, and that's so sometimes you never know. You just gotta keep moving forward, and sometimes you'll get a break.
Photography gods will shine on you.
They gave me one on that one.
Yeah. Make up for the
rainstorm.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
All right. We'll finish this segment up. We asked Wayne this last week. Wayne, I don't know if you know Wayne Cathell. He doesn't come to too many meetups and things, but he's a local photojournalist, works for some of the daily or the weekly papers and such. And I asked Wayne, what do you carry in your camera bag? What lenses, bodies, things like that? What have you got in your camera bag?
My workhorse is a Nikon D700.
Yeah.
Workhorse lens is a 70 to 200 2.8.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful lens. I love that lens. That's probably on 90% of the time.
Yep.
My 17 to 24, or 70 to 24, I'm sorry.
Right.
No.
24 to 70.
24 to 70, I'm sorry.
Same difference.
The 2.8.
Yep.
I do a lot of portrait work. I do, that's a great lens as well.
Sure.
I love my 85 1.4. Okay. Really, really pretty lens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Those are my three main lenses.
Right.
I do have a 16 to 35 wide angle. I don't use it that much. I'm not, I kind of do, and I'm not crazy about, it's, sometimes I pull it out. Sometimes.
Some of the photojournalistic stuff, maybe, that you can get in there.
Yeah, especially if you're in like a really pretty environment, you can kind of widen everything, make it nice. But those main lenses are, especially the 70 to 200.
Yeah. Well, that was the same thing. I mean, that's such a workhorse lens. I mean, Wayne carries that same lens in his bag.
Right.
He's a Canon shooter, but that 70 to 200 2.8. That's one that almost every professional will have in their bag. And like you said, it's a workhorse. It's the lens you rely on for many, many, many shots.
I love that lens.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just, I love it.
Yeah, I love mine too.
Yeah.
So you're going to stick around with us for the the second half hour,
Okay,
and
cool.
We're going to transition, and we're going to talk a little bit about lighting.
Cool.
And Lou's got some discussion topics and things that he's going to bring up. So if something sounds interesting, chime in.
All right, cool.
Yeah. And you can tell us about your underwater flash experience, maybe.
That would be a SB600 and an SB800.
Wow. Those are both nice units.
Nice flashes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Lou, what have you got for us on lighting? And I'm assuming we're going to talk about available light, studio light, reflectors.
A lot about studio light,
Okay.
Studio lighting. And one of the things that you're seeing more and more manufacturers starting to get into is the LEDs these days.
Right.
I'm not a real big proponent of them, but you're seeing more and more of them on the market from more and more manufacturers.
Right.
I think there's some issues with them in terms of being lower power. I like the ability to have the power of a flash to, in effect, overpower some daylight when I need to.
Sure.
Right.
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of these, I mean, I think the ones that everybody kind of thinks about is some of the Last Light stuff and some of that's real high end LED stuff. But the Chinese have really, with their modestly priced manufacturing and other benefits, they've really brought the price of LEDs down.
Yes,
and that's been a tremendous boon to photographers who, for years, were stuck with more traditional studio stuff.
Which they also brought down as well.
Sure.
I mean, some of these manufacturers like Interfit, you're talking a couple $100 a head.
Right. Now we've got a call. Is that right, Cedric?
Yep, we have Zach on the line.
Oh, good. So, Zach, how are you this evening?
I'm doing good.
Good. So, have you got a comment or a question? How can we help you tonight?
Yeah, I have a question for Tony.
Okay.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Hey, I have a question for you.
Okay, go ahead.
What would you recommend to a beginner photographer who wants to progress?
Well, basically, I would recommend that you're out there shooting quite often. Pretty much almost have the camera at your side. If you can go out and shoot a few minutes each day, and then what you try to do is you try to vary that. Shoot something different each day. Then work with a little bit with the flash. Sometimes go outside, take some sunset shots, but put a subject in the image as well. Try to get a shot of a subject during the sunset and try to illuminate and light them.
Yeah.
So basically it's a matter of just going out there and shooting every day. Just keeping the camera pointed.
The best camera is the one you have with you.
There you go.
There's a photographer that I follow on Facebook. He and I are friends. His name's David Hume Kennerly. He worked for, I think it was Time for a number of years, and maybe Newsday or one of those.
David Hume Kennerly was Gerald Ford's official photographer.
Yeah, and he's doing a photo a day project this year.
Yeah,
and everything he's shooting, posting on Facebook, his photo a day is all done with an iPhone. And people go, oh, iPhone, or Droid or whatever, that can't be a serious camera. But you see, in the hands of someone who is a master at the art, the craft, some of the images that David Hume Kennerly produces, it's like, wow, I should be that good with my iPhone.
If anything, what it does is it shows you to use your imagination.
Yeah.
To come up, to think on your feet, and to come up with different things.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the most important thing, because you can basically carry that over to when you're doing a shoot. If certain things don't work, you have to transition, and okay, we'll try something different. And what that does is that actually is a good tool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say, if you haven't been doing it, get a flash and start learning how to use the flash to control your light.
Right.
Yeah. Zach, did you have a follow-up question?
No, that was pretty much it. But,
Cool. How's the feed working? Is it working all right?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
It's a few seconds behind, but, yeah, it's pretty current.
All right, sweet. So we got it working. All right, buddy.
Yeah.
So I should probably, thanks for calling, Zach. I should probably point out to the listening audience, Zach is your son.
That's great.
Yeah, well, you got your first call out of the way, How much did you have to pay him to do that? Does he get to stay up late tonight? Or
I'm sure he's going to tell me the price tonight.
Yeah.
It's like, Dad, you owe me. All right.
Yeah.
Where's my $10?
Owe me big time.
Yeah.
All righty. So anyway, we were talking about some lighting stuff. Where were we?
Well, we were starting to talk a little about LEDs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
There's been some issues with them in terms of their white balance.
Sure.
The better ones are getting more accurate.
Right.
But probably still a custom white balance is best with LEDs.
Yeah. But that's at the high end of things, I think. I mean, I don't run into a whole lot of photographers that are still totally switched over. I think, partly because photographers have an investment in the gear that they purchased. They can't just run out and replace everything. Now, I noticed in the back of your car tonight when I went out and met you at the studio here, you've got some more studio style strobes. What are you shooting with?
Basically, what I started taking on location with me is Alien Bees.
Right.
An 800.
Yep.
And I'm using that with a 22-inch beauty dish.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I've kind of learned taking an umbrella out to location is a little hard to keep in line. But ironically, on today's shoot, I did use a 7-foot, was it parabola?
Yeah.
Parabolic
Right,
reflector.
sorry.
Yeah.
Right. No, an umbrella. 7-foot umbrella. That I actually had horizontally, and I was able to provide some shade.
Right.
For the person I was working with, and they work great.
Yeah.
As long as you don't point that sucker, horizontal, just, or vertical, or the other way where it's going to blow away, it works really, really nice.
Yeah. But so for some of the listeners, an Alien B is a more economical, kind of people might consider it a studio flash, while yours can run off a battery pack. People typically think of them as plugging into like the wall, correct?
Right. I'm running it with a battery pack. It's called the Vagabond battery pack. You could probably get anywhere from 500 to 1,000 flashes with this battery pack, and it works great. And
as you called it an 800, that refers to this kind of rating of 800 watt seconds, which is
right. It's kind of like a medium power. I think they have three. They have the 400, the 800, and the 1600.
16, yeah.
So the 800 is kind of like a medium power. That's really good for location.
Yeah.
And as opposed to going out and using 2 or 3 different strobes, I with my luck, I'd rather actually use one point of failure as opposed to have 3 or 4 different points of failure.
Yeah, there
Where
you
if
go.
I'm taking 3 or 4 different strobes and using those, but that could be used as well.
Yeah.
You can do that. But it's a great little unit. It really does the job.
And those are monolights, so they're infinitely adjustable within their own range.
Right. There's a power slider actually on
Right.
the bottom where you actually have to play with it, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. And just as a reference, the approximate retail, what did you pay for that sucker? Remember?
Not really. I think they're probably $400.
Yeah, that sounds
That's probably about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're actually, I think, made in the U.S. Actually.
Made in the U.S. Paul Buff.
Paul C. Buff, as a matter of fact. Yeah.
Who got his start with the White Lightnings, which is now like their better end of those monolights and that kind of thing. But so we've brought up this term monolights. What's a monolight, and what would the other kind of lighting be, Lou?
Well, you've got 2 types of basic flash for studio photography.
Okay.
Or it could be location, but one is a power pack.
Right.
Where each of the heads or lights plugs into the power pack, and the head is basically just the flash tube.
Right.
And you control your power settings from the power pack. Older ones are a little more difficult to get lighting ratios because they always release the full voltage.
Right.
So it gets a little more difficult to adjust. That's what's nice about the monolights.
Right.
Because they each have their own power pack.
Right.
And when you plug them in, you can infinitely adjust each of them.
Right.
And they're easier to work with, easier to learn with monolights.
Yeah, for many things up until the issue that I see with people having with monolights is they spend the bulk of their money on the lighting, and so then they get the $10 Chinese light stand, and they have this big heavy weight up on top, and not that it would blow over and fall in a marina or anything, but you know how Murphy's Law goes. And, I hear about more of this kind of stuff where with the monolights, people are tripping on them, this or that, or, a little higher breeze and these things go over. And because the power pack and everything's inclusive, that thing takes a hit. It's probably not necessarily toast, but it's going in for a repair, to say the least.
Yeah.
So, whereas the studio ones, while it's certainly hard to use on location, the head's kind of a dumb head. If it falls over, you broke the tube, you put another tube in, and you keep moving on. But I would say that overall, the power pack style, where you have to run all the cables, is old school, certainly, but it's more likely to be seen indoors in that kind of a studio, the more formal settings. And while the monolights certainly are used in a studio, they also have the added versatility of using them in the field.
Right.
Yeah.
And basically, with the Vagabond power pack, I mean, you can power 2 heads.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah.
And
how heavy is that sucker?
It's nice.
Yeah.
It's a couple of pounds, if that.
Yeah. Lithium ion, probably.
Yeah, and it recharges in less than 3 hours.
Yeah.
So it's really nice.
Well,
really nice.
You just took my joke. I was going to say, what are they made out of? Dilithium crystals or something?
Yeah, right.
But you know what? Using that as opposed to some SB 700s, I like the punch I get with that.
Yeah.
It does a really, really nice job.
Well, that's the, but that's the other school this remote photography, and even to some degree studio, is the guys like Joe McNally.
Right.
He's, of course, the big name, and he uses the Nikon lights. His big thing is all TTL pretty much, though.
Right, right.
He uses all wireless stuff. And then the guy from the Baltimore Sun, my mind just went blank, the strobist.
Right, right.
David Hobby.
Right. McNally uses a lot of the Nikon creative lighting system.
Yeah, absolutely.
The infrared triggers.
Yep.
So that's good stuff, too.
Yeah, and whereas the strobist, and he's got it well. Of course, both of those guys have websites, JoeMcNally.com and
David Hobby, right?
And David Hobby's, I think it's just strobist.com. Now, his stuff is all, he's into the cheap dumb flashes.
Right.
And so he modifies light with distance, and there's some power ratios on some of the stuff. You can turn the flashes down, but not near as sophisticated as the TTL flash, like what McNally's doing.
Right.
But for starting out, you got a flash meter. You can kind of figure out what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They work pretty well, like we were talking about before the show. They get a little twitchy, but they're pretty good.
Yeah.
The reliability is pretty good. I just had, unfortunately, she got the mini, I think, if I remember saying, the mini TT1 and the Flex TT5, if I got everything
We're
correct.
talking about Pocket Wizards.
The Pocket Wizards.
Yes.
I had one of those, not the mini, but I had the Flex go down on me. So I'm
Really?
Yeah, I got to get that replaced, but I'm a little down on that.
Yeah. So okay, I've purchased something. Maybe it was some Alien Bees, or maybe I found a used power pack system that I'm going to build my little home studio around. What do I need next? I mean, I got the lights. Do I just shine those on the subject, or what am I going to do with these things now that I got them?
Well, I think the first thing that you need to do is start off with some kind of a light modifier.
Okay.
From a monetary standpoint, the cheapest that you're going to get started with is, while the Chinese have affected the price of some things like soft boxes, umbrellas.
Yep.
Right. To build upon that, the Alien Bee actually has a slot for the umbrella right up top.
Right.
And it's a thumb screw that you tighten it down and you're all set.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would probably recommend people might want to get started with white shoot-through umbrellas.
Yes.
Right.
So you can shoot through them, soften them a little bit. If you do want some hard light, you can turn them around and use them as a bounce umbrella.
Probably start out with a 43 inch
43
umbrella.
inch, yeah.
Yeah, and then you could all go a little bit bigger, maybe to a 70 inch or bigger.
Yeah. And that's something that's amazing, because I, looking at umbrella prices over the last couple of months for some projects, is how the Chinese have even affected that market. I can remember when umbrellas were, close to $100 for a decent umbrella. Now you find all kinds of umbrellas for $50 or less, and they're, but the thing is, they become almost throwaways.
They're $20 if that.
If the thing breaks, you just pitch
Pretty
it.
much. I've gone through a bunch of those.
Yeah. Sign of the times.
Yes.
Because I can remember years ago, these old photographers, I bought this umbrella in 1950 and I still got it. Well, yeah, it used to be white, now it's yellow.
The funny thing is I've gone through, probably in the last couple of months, I've gone probably through 4 umbrellas.
Yeah.
If you're not breaking it, you're not using it.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
The old saying goes.
Yeah. If you're not breaking it, you're not using it. Note to self: buy stock in umbrella company. So, because Tony's around and shooting.
Was it Westcott?
Yeah,
umbrellas?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. JW Westcott. They're out of Toledo, I think. And Photoflex is another of the ones that are more into soft boxes. There's a discount place. It's I'm not sure I have this right, but I'll try to get it posted tomorrow. It's called Cowboy Studio. It is it's just a bunch of made in China stuff that this company down in Texas, hence the cowboy name.
Right.
It's called Cowboy Studio. And they have, it's just cheap everything. It's cheap triggers, cheap stands, cheap. But if you're getting started and you need that stuff, you need to sell a little something to buy the good stuff, and unless you hit the lottery or something. So I've looked through some of that Cowboy Studio stuff and read some of the reviews on Amazon and different places, and it's like, for somebody getting started, this would not be a bad way to do a one-stop kind of shopping and put together your small system.
Yeah. And that goes along with the Alien Bees.
Right.
And the same thing with the old Patterson Interfit, which is now all Chinese, the Interfit. They make some nice flashes. I've owned Interfits.
Yeah.
And worked them pretty hard.
Oh, yeah.
But what beginners can do when they're starting out with lighting is even the Nikons, they have a commander.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So basically what they would need is a softbox. They can take their SB light or any sort of light, put it into the softbox, take their commander, and fire the flash, the external flash, off the camera with the commander.
Yeah.
Kind of gives out the little that little burst, and it fires that, and that's a great way to get started.
Yeah, and some of the Chinese flashes, you don't even have to buy the Nikon stuff.
Right.
And you can go with some of the Chinese stuff, Yongnu or something like that. I have to look up some of these names and things, but yeah.
But the Nikon stuff is all built in. You don't need anything.
Oh yeah. And some of the small softbox stuff. A lot of the stuff from LumaQuest I like real well. They've got a nice modular system of light modifiers and things that are perfect for the Nikon or Canon, whoever speed lights you're using. And then like Wayne talked last week, the photojournalist approach is you slap one of those Omni bounces, which are those diffusion domes that just clip on, press on, and but that's the photojournalist. Well, I mean, if it's a down and dirty stuff, you just point it up.
Right. I mean, we all have one.
Right?
The Fung, the Gary Fung. I got.
Yeah.
The Tupperware on top of the flash.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're in the bind and you're in a tight place and you gotta, just use TTL and not just flash and go, and you're in the middle of running and gunning. Sometimes
they're better than nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things, I don't mean to digress at all. One of the things that has helped me a lot is, I've watched a lot of wedding photographers, portrait photographers. I can throw some names out. David Zeiser.
Yeah.
Cliff Mountner.
Yeah.
But one of the cool things that I did was I actually went to a seminar. Lindsay Adler.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Lou Freeman. Okay. And what was kind of cool is that whole thing shifts.
Right.
It's the same kind of photography, but it's told from a women's perspective.
Right.
From a female perspective.
Right.
Where they're treating everything like a fashion shoot. And I just love a lot of that. Especially when you're working with female models, make them feel as if they're the most important thing on set.
Right.
Make them, dress them up. Transform them into something that, that's elegant, that makes them pretty, and then they love it.
Oh, sure.
That to me was such a great help.
Yeah, it's their day, so to speak.
Yes.
Make them.
Even though you only have to have them out there for an hour and a half, 2 hours.
Queen for a day.
There you go.
But but yes, some of that small stuff. So I think a lot of people have the idea that if I'm going to get into shooting things with a flash, that it's going to cost me hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And really, there's some very simple things, as you pointed out. Some of the simple Nikon speed lights will work. Put a light modifier on it. They've got small soft boxes. You can use the commander feature, and Canon has that same system. On many of their bodies, it's built in. The camera will control the flash, and away you go for a few $100s in some cases. And it just depends. Especially if you go with the Chinese flashes, you're in for very little, and that's a great way to get started. But even simpler than that, reflectors.
Oh, absolutely.
Do you use them, Tony?
Sometimes depends if I'm on a shoot and they bring their boyfriend or girlfriend or their mom or dad or whatever.
Somebody to hold it.
Somebody. So if I can get some cheap help, you know, as opposed to asking a stranger. Yeah. A lot of times I'll use a diffuser, but I think the parabolic umbrella takes the place of that.
Yeah.
I don't really use reflectors as much. I could. A lot of times I'm running and gunning on a shoot, and it's just me.
Yep. When it's just you, reflectors are tough.
Right. I mean, I can kind of pop in some extra light.
Sure.
And it'll take care of that.
But if you're doing, which probably isn't your thing, but more, an informal home kind of thing, I was speaking with someone Friday and saying how easy it is to do really nice-looking portraits in a home. If you can get some natural light coming in through a window on one side, put a white reflector or warm tone reflector, depends on, skin tones and things, to bounce some of that light back on the other side of the face. And you can control that just with the distance, how close that reflector is to the subject.
Right.
And you've got effectively about a $5 studio. You're taking natural sunlight on one side, and you got a $5 piece of foam core on the other side, and you're propping it up with a chair or your tripod or something.
Right.
And boom, you can actually take some nice looking pictures.
Cool.
Not that you'd do something that mundane, but
I hope that my pictures one day will look cool. I'm working on it. It's a work in progress.
Yeah. As soon as you get that latest version of Photoshop, they'll all look cool, won't they? Do you use software? What software do you use?
I use actually Lightroom.
Do you?
Yep. Just playing around with the new beta 5, version 5. It's, it does probably 80% of what I need to do, and then I'll just move it into Photoshop to do a little skin softening, and then we're good to go.
Yeah. That's I've talked about it at some of our meetings and things, and Lightroom 5, it's a beta. It's free. You can use it till the end of June. Go to labs.adobe.com, and you can download it. And but one thing it won't do, people go, hey, I downloaded it, and I can't find any of my pictures. It will not, when the full version or the final version of 5 comes out, it will convert your Lightroom 4 library to a Lightroom 5 library. But as it is, when you use the beta, you've got to load pictures into it. So you might just want it's meant to be playing around with it, learning what the features are and some things like that. So you may not want to import your whole library into it, but
right. It's a cool program. Like I said, I spend a lot of time in it, 80%.
Yeah.
And then Photoshop for the other 20.
And you mentioned some training that you've received. You've gone to some seminars. David Zeiser, I know, because he's from Cincinnati.
Right.
He's a heck of a wedding guy.
Right.
But what other training resources do you use?
Kelby Training,
Yeah.
kelbytraining.com. I use that. There's a lot of free stuff on YouTube.
Yep.
A lot of cool videos. Looking at work and looking at certain photographers and say, how did they do that?
Yeah.
And digging and looking at resources. Because a lot of photographers out there actually have tutorials. A lot of them actually have free tutorials.
Sure.
And they talk about how they achieved a certain look.
Yeah.
Creative Live is another resource. But probably Kelby, going to Photoshop World, sitting in on classes.
Yeah, that's and I think that's a huge thing that many professionals kind of ignore.
Right.
Their own professional development as it goes. And Kelby Training is a huge resource. Photoshop World, I know you've gone several times.
Right.
Is a major influence on a number of photographers. Wedding, portrait, event. Just a number of different studio, commercial, lot of different genres of photographers. But
and another great resource is going out with some models that'll do time for print.
Yeah.
And going out and spending 3-4 hours and say, okay, let's shoot, let's make some images.
Yeah.
And basically their compensation will be they just want some prints.
Yeah.
Prints, yeah.
Just give them some digital negatives, and you get to work with them and you get to learn, and and they understand if you're out there goofing up, and they understand.
Yeah.
So it's great. I learned a lot doing that.
Yeah, that's a good tip because I think a lot of people, for a long time that part of the market was kind of, you don't want to do that, but for many people, that's been their training ground.
Right. Model Mayhem is another place to get to look up some great talent.
One Model Place, are they still going around too?
I believe so. They're the other one.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I know people that even on Craigslist,
right.
You can find, photographers looking for models looking for photographers, that type of thing. And some of the local photography meetups.
Right.
There's the Strobus group that is active, and I don't think they have a very strong kind of education thing. But if you've got a little bit of experience, you can kind of watch and see what's going on, and then participate yourself. They'll help you figure out what kind of gear you need and this kind of things. And then,
and what about that great organization?
The Florida Center for Creative Photography.
There you go.
There we go. Yeah. Well, we don't do much with lighting, but we need to. Over the last couple of months, since first of the year, we've been working on some things, and I think you'll see some portrait lighting and various things that we'll start helping photographers with.
But what's kind of cool is you have these photo walks that people are out on, and we're talking photography. We're talking about concepts and ideas and all sorts of cool stuff. And it's a great learning tool as well.
Tony, I got to thank you for being with us this evening.
My pleasure.
We've probably used up our time. I'm looking for Cedric. He's kind of fiddling with the music, and it's coming up. So
thanks for having me, guys.
Murdo,
I appreciate it.
Thanks for being on the show. We will have you back. And for my brother Lou, this is Jeff Donald, and this has been Picture It, or Picture This, or whatever it is. I'll maybe learn that one next week, too. Thanks, folks. You have a great Sunday evening, and take lots of pictures. Good night.
And my lack of education hasn't hurt.
WTAN, Clearwater, Tampa Bay. WDCF, Dade City, Tampa Bay. WZHR, Zephyr Hills, Tampa Bay. Listen.